Hey, I'm excited for the Sean P experience. I don't know about y'all.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We live right now, man. What up? What up? What up? It's your man Sean P coming in live. This is Sean P Experience, man. I always tell y'all we have a special guest, and this guest is no less than any other guest. He is amazing. He is outstanding. I have been waiting for this conversation. How you doing, my brother?
Man, I'm good. And again, sorry for the people that have tuned in live. Sorry for the delay. We got caught up. There's a little time zone confusion, but I made it. So better late than never. You know what they say.
Trust me, in all of my years doing this show, time zones is one of the major things. Being you know national, international guests.
Yeah.
I've had all kind of time zone things. So I mean, I pretty much assumed that was the time zone thing. It's all good, man. We good. We good.
Good.
We
Perfect.
good. So for your official introduction, here we go.
Yep.
My guest today, one of the most respected voices in sports media, an award-winning writer, broadcaster, public speaker, and author. He spent nearly 20 years at the Toronto Star before building an impressive independent media career with bylines in CBC Sports, New York Times, the Globe and Mail, and beyond. Whether he's covering boxing from ringside or exploring the intersection of sports and society or sharing his own family story, he brings insight, honesty, and perspective to every conversation. Today we're discussing the powerful memoir, My Fighting Family, Borders, Bloodlines, and the Battles That Made Us. I love that B alliteration. I love that alliteration. Man. I love it. We'll get
Thank
to
my
that later.
agent. Thank my
Check
agent.
this out, people.
She came up with
Finalists for the
subtitles.
2025 Trillium Book Award, 2025 Kobo Emerging Writer Prize, and the Balkans Prize, named the National Association of Black Journalists Outstanding Book of 2025. I give you all Morgan Campbell.
That's me. Good to be here, man.
Let me ask this question, man. I want
Yes.
an honest answer, first of all, bro. I
That's
know in
all
the world of writing.
Listen, Sean, all I know how to give are honest answers. So go ahead.
Okay, check it. I know in the world of writing, it seems like tennis or golf, where it's like if something good happens, people kind of clap like.
Yeah.
But whenever you are seeing this list of awards and nominations and finalists, how do you actually feel is the question.
So for me, and I've said this before, I wrote a damn good book. And I know I wrote a damn good book. And I hope a lot of your listeners get to read this book. It'll be a lot easier to find in the US this time around, now that the paperback's coming out, than it was in hardcover. But sometimes as an author, you look at your sales stats and they're lagging, and you wonder what the problem was. Like, is there a disconnect between what I think I did, and what my editors think I did, and what readers think I did? So when those award nominations started rolling in last spring and summer, I didn't feel validated because I knew I didn't need other people's validation to tell me that I had conceived and told a really good story. But I did feel vindicated because I knew I had conceived and written and told a really good story. And so from a marketing standpoint, the trick this time is to get the market up to speed, close that gap between what awards juries think of my book, and what other writers think of my book, and then what the market thinks of my book. So there's a gap we have to close, and we're working to close it. But vindicated is the word.
So let's kind of tease it for a little bit to educate the audience. So I would say we living in today's crazy economic times. Gas prices and everything are through the roof. People are cutting every way they can to cut extras and everything. So like, do we as writers factor it into our sales and our downloads, our streams, do we factor in the economy and what's going on with the world? People, the readership is down.
Yes.
Literacy is down. So do we factor those things in?
Those, whether or not I factor them in, they factor in, right? And so as an artist, as a writer with a book that you're trying to bring to market during these tough economic times, the one advantage I have this time around is that this is the paperback coming out and not the hardcover, because the paperback is a lot cheaper than the hardcover. But like for me as an author, like I don't discriminate in terms of the type of sales. Like I get a different royalty rate depending on which version of the book sells, but as long as people are reading it, I'm happy. And if you can't buy it, you can sign it out from the library. If they ain't got it at the library, you can ask for it at the library, because the thing is, when the library gets the book, they still have to buy it. So that's still a sale. So if I'm worried about the economics of it, I want people to sign it out from the library. Also, just because I believe in the idea of libraries. I want libraries to thrive, and I want us all to help and to support each other. So yeah, like, times are tough now, and books sometimes can become a luxury item. But at the same time, like, stories and storytelling uh, are essential to a lot of people. So a lot of people will buy groceries first and then buy books. I spent money on books when I should have been spending on other stuff. It happens sometimes. So these times are tough, but again, there are ways around it. The paperback's cheaper than the hardcover. The library is the cheapest. And again, I'm a big supporter of libraries. So if you're interested in the story and you want to read it, you can't find it, you don't have the $18 to buy the paperback, by all means, go to the library. I love libraries. I support libraries.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we go into the serious topics, man, I love doing a good icebreaker. So I'm a fighting fan my whole life, lifelong fighting fan, boxing, martial arts, MMA, you name it. So my question is, who are your top 5 boxers of all time?
Ooh, man, I'm not good at making lists. So maybe these won't be the top 5 in terms of skills or accomplishments or whatever, but like in terms of importance, historical legacy, let's do it. So Ali's on that list, obviously. Sugar Ray Robinson is on that list for sure. Floyd Mayweather, in terms of more recent vintage fighters, is on that list. And regardless of what's happening with him now, like, he changed the pay scale while he was like an active fighter. So we got Ali, Floyd, Sugar Ray Robinson. In terms of historical importance, obviously Jack Johnson. And the 5th one, it's going to tie together a couple of themes that we're going to talk about today, and then I'm going to talk about in a speech I have coming up. We're going to go George Dixon, Little Chocolate. So George Dixon was the first Black fighter, any nationality, to win a world title. He was the first Canadian fighter, any race, to win a world title. George Dixon was he won his world title where, Sean?
In New Orleans. You got me.
New Orleans. He won that world featherweight title in New Orleans, 1891.
Okay. Now I got homework.
There we go. And he fought out of Boston, but he was from Africville, Halifax, Nova Scotia. So this is a Black Canadian. But if you know anything about the history of Black Atlantic Canada, the first groups of Black people started coming to Nova Scotia from the United States. So he had African-American roots beyond his Canadian roots. But George Dixon, also credited with inventing shadow boxing, but he was an early pioneer in the sport. Exactly. So those are 5 of my top, if not the top 5.
I love it, man. That's an awesome list. And Money Mayweather, I'm surprised you didn't name Tyson at all. Is he an honorable mention?
Maybe Tyson, as a cultural figure, for sure. A lot of things came together for Tyson. The fact that he's a heavyweight, the fact that he was from New York, the fact that he came up in the late 80s when New York was even more on the map than it normally is, just because hip hop was rising as a cultural force at that time too. But when you look at Mike Tyson's career, he had two years when he was untouchable. And the rest of that is just, there was managed decline and there were big steps down when he went to jail. But every time he went away, he came back and his reputation and the brand was restored, even if the skills didn't match up to it. So in terms of just cultural importance, 100%. In-ring performance, he had those 2 years when he was untouchable, and no one can take that away from him. But after that, he did lose the guys that he should or would have beaten otherwise. But again, this is why this is also why I'm not good at making lists.
It's all good, man. I want to ask you about the title of this book, man, because I know a lot of things go into every part of a book. So first of all, was this title the always title, or did you have different iterations of a title and then you came down to this?
Okay, so just to get your audience caught up, My Fighting Family is a memoir. It's my life growing up Black and American in Canada in a family whose two halves are at war. So each of those details is ground zero for a lot of conflict. We're Black in a country where most of the people are white. We're Black American in a country where most of the Black people are not American. Like not even like George Dixon with American roots. Like most of the Black people we grew up with were Caribbean Canadians. And then, so all these is ground zero for a lot of conflict. And then just the personalities in my family. There are a lot of clashes, a lot of smart, strong, stubborn, headstrong people in my family. And so, but when I had written the book, I conceived it. And in the book proposal, the title was going to be Full Citizenship, because talking to my grandparents over the years, one of the things they would say to me is that growing up in the United States in this segregated country, especially my grandmother, she grew up in Arkansas. So she grew up under Jim Crow. My grandfather, he grew up in Chicago. There was de facto segregation, but he didn't experience like true Jim Crow until he went to the Army. And one of the things they would tell me is that they didn't really feel like full citizens until they came to Canada, even as they weren't even citizens when they first came. They were landed immigrants, but they still felt more included in Canada than they ever had in the US. So this was going to be the title. But my editor and my agent, they didn't really like the title. They didn't like full citizenship as a title. And so the first chapter in the book is called My Fighting Family. And so my agent, Martha Webb, she's like, why don't we just make My Fighting Family the title of the book? So I said, hey, I like it. And then she actually came up with the subtitle, Borders and Bloodlines and the Battles That Made Us. So there it goes. That's how we came up with the title.
I love that subtitle, man. As a poet, I love alliteration. I'm always doing alliteration. So those bees caught my eye. I'm like, man, I got to ask them about this bees.
Yes. Yeah. And so one, the idea of a border, it's not just a word in the title, right? Like the border is a character in the story just as much as any of us are, in the sense that we are this family that's divided between Canada and the United States. So the family is divided just by virtue of the personalities, but physical distance in the border, the Ambassador Bridge, right? The Detroit River, the Ambassador Bridge, the St. Clair River, the Blue Water Bridge. Like this is between the two halves of our family. And then, and also the idea of a bloodline is one of the points that I demonstrate in the book, and I demonstrate in my day-to-day life when people talk to me and deal with me, is that a lot of folks have the impression that like, African-American culture is something that anyone can access, anyone can come by, and you can just become fluent in it because you immerse yourself in pop culture. I listen to some hip hop records. I watch some sitcoms. I'm up to speed on it just like you are. And I write about my African Americanness also as a function of heritage and who I am and who I came from and who my people are, which is very different from just watching The Cosby Show, just listening to a bunch of hip hop records and dropping N-bombs and thinking you got a handle on AAVE because you spam your speech with N-bombs. And one of the points I try to demonstrate is that my identity as an African American in Canada runs much deeper than anything you're going to get off of pop culture. Because I had it in my house. I was raised by two people from the south side of Chicago. I got an uncle and an aunt from the west side of Chicago. They all raised me. They made me who I am, and they left their fingerprints on me. And I always thank my parents, that they raised me as a Black, capital B, Black African American in Canada, but that's how I navigate the world. That's how I present. And I'm glad I'm not the I acknowledge my African American heritage person. Like this is who I am. I'm not Tiger Woods. You see what I'm saying? And they made a point to raise my sisters and I as people who could function on either side of the border and not go back to Chicago and undergo some culture shock because we ain't ever talked to no real life Black Americans before, So
I like that.
It answers your question. It's a meandering answer, but I hope it helps.
No. I love it. I love it, man. So you mentioned it more than once already, but let's do it. So we're talking about the paperback release. Now I know for most people out there that don't know, traditional publishing, the hardback comes out
Yep.
X amount of months and everything, and then at this point, paperback release, you get a brand new chance at podcasts like this. You go to book tours, bookstores, whatever you're doing.
Yep.
Give us the importance of that second win you get on a paperback release.
Yeah, especially like with my book in particular, it sort of got lost in the wholesale system. And so it was really hard. The hardcover was really hard to find in the US, right? And because half of this book takes place in the US, like this book is a natural for places like Chicago, where my family grew up, where a lot of this book takes place. You know, Buffalo, it's not too far from Toronto. Detroit, the book opens right on the border in Detroit. But because it got lost in the wholesale system, a lot of independent booksellers, they didn't know this book existed. But then when I would meet independent bookstore owners and talk to them about the book, they loved the idea of the book. And so, but once a book, like the big company, the big book wholesaler is called Ingram. But once your book disappears from Ingram, they don't take it back. So once Ingram decided my hardcover people weren't interested in it, they sent all the copies back, and that's the only chance you get. But when the paperback comes out, you can do it again. And now it's not just a paperback, it's a paperback that has all the stamps on it for every award you win or get nominated for. And so it's a brand new chance to bring this book back to new markets that missed it the first time around. So I already have more traction, like in Chicago, with the paperback than I did with the hardcover. And even just conversations like this, like you and I are having right now, you know, that wasn't quite possible with the hardcover, but the paperback just gives us an excuse to treat this as a new book launch, you know. And one of the smart things my publisher did was the paperback book launch was supposed to take place in January, and they pushed it back to June. Which I would much rather launch a book when the weather's nice. You know, if I live in Miami, it doesn't matter. But in Toronto, Chicago, man, let's do this in the summer. You know, and one of the things that helped too was that June, you know, is Black Music Month, and so it gave me an excuse to connect with I. Augustus Durham, who wrote "Stay Black and Die." He's from, I think, Connecticut, but he's teaching at University of Toronto now. And so we're going to do a Black Music Month event at the end of June. June is also Juneteenth. I connected with a group called the Black Talent Initiative here in Toronto.
Juneteenth.
Yes. You know, and Juneteenth is one of these holidays that, like, a lot of folks don't realize that it wasn't just an African-American holiday. It was a very regional holiday for a lot of years and went mainstream post George Floyd. And so a lot of Canadians look at Mark Harrison. He's the guy that founded the Black Talent Initiative. They look at him funny, like, why are you celebrating this American holiday in Canada? But Mark's family, they are descended of people who came to Canada from the Underground Railroad. So he has a right. He got Black American roots just like me. So let's celebrate it. Toronto's very multicultural. You see Independence Day celebrations from every single country that's represented here by an expat community. So why can't we, as Black American and Black American descendants, do the same thing? So that's what we're going to do. And so these are just two natural tie-ins to market the book and give it some more momentum with the paperback release.
So this is the most important question when I have a guest that have a book out for a while.
Okay.
You've done a lot of book talks, you've done different things. My question to you is, what is the part of the book you have not had a chance to talk about that you wish you would have had a chance in the past to talk about? What is like one of those topics that you're like, man, you know what? I want to drill down on this.
Ooh, good question. Honestly, for me, it doesn't matter because, like, any part of the book, I'm happy to talk about it. That's why I wrote about it. So there's no one part, no one story I told that I feel is more important than any other story. I will tell you this, and I just released a TikTok video about it today. I'm going to post it to Instagram tomorrow. I don't know how your audience feels about music.
Man, we love music. We love music, sports, food.
So again, two things to keep in mind about me is that, one, I come from a family of musicians. I come from a musical family. Like, music is the only reason my family even came to Canada. My grandfather was a pianist, a jazz pianist. If you're into old R&B, you've heard my grandfather before. You haven't known it was him, because he used to record with like Curtis Mayfield, used to record with Mary Wells. He did all kinds of sessions in Chicago. And so, but he started getting booked in Canada to perform. And that's when it entered his mind to move here. The other thing is, and this will resonate with people who grew up, who were born like in the 70s, like I was, is that as a teenager, I spent much too much time awake past my bedtime listening to the Quiet Storm. So now we lived in Toronto. We got the black radio station from Buffalo, WBLK. Just so you know who that station is for. We Black, WBLK. And I used to listen to the Quiet Storm every night. So I'm a big slow jam connoisseur. So the point is, first 18 days of Black Music Month, every day I'm going to name a new slow jam, because there's a chapter in my book called the 90-minute slow jam tape. And folks have been asking me, are you going to make a 90-minute slow jam tape to go with the book? And so
I love that.
The paperback release during Black Music Month, 2 big flashing green lights saying, hey, go make this 90-minute slow jam tape. So make sure y'all follow me on TikTok, Instagram, because every day, 9 songs per side, 45 plus 45, 90-minute slow jam tape. We're doing it.
And let's speak on that real fast, man. Please go to this man's social media page, man. I don't remember what month it was. It might have been Black History Month or something like that. But you were posting a lot of
books.
Back-to-back basis.
So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to do that with the slow jams in June. And then again, in February, I'll do 28 books. Yeah.
You can definitely expand your library just watching this page and watching how he talks about these books and articulate about the themes in these books, man. It was definitely hot to watch that. And maybe we'll bring you on the show. I was like, man, please come on the podcast. Please come talk to me. I love intelligent people. I love these conversations, man.
And also just this podcast, because it speaks to smart Black Americans that are into books. And again, from Canada, that's a hard market to sort of speak directly to. But I also know, like, that's my book's audience. There's people like you, people like me, people like my friends, people like the people I went to college with. Can I answer this question real quick from @Lad?
Yeah, that's my brother right there. Please answer this question.
Okay, do Black Canadians celebrate Harriet Tubman? The answer to that question is, it depends. So Harriet Tubman, you will find monuments to her down in St. Catharines, like where my niece goes to school, is where you'll find Brock University. That's down by Niagara Falls. And that was sort of her home base while she lived in Canada. So you will find monuments to her there. There's a dorm named after her there. There used to be a track meet, like for kids, every summer called the Tubman Games. And now there's a Harriet Tubman street or boulevard in downtown Toronto, but it's teeny tiny, because what they did was they had a neighborhood called Regent Park. It's still there, but it's heavily gentrified now. And so one of the nods they make to the fact that Black people used to live there is like, we'll give Harriet Tubman a street that's 80 yards long. But like a lot of people, famous Black Americans who have ties to Canada, Canadians have a hard time picking up on the fact that this person has a tie to Canada. Like, I know that Harriet Tubman made St. Catharines her home base for a while, but that's not something you're necessarily going to learn in school. I just learned that because I had the parents I had and we were into Black history. And so do Black Canadians celebrate Harriet Tubman? Yes, but not as much as they should. Although, sorry, but again, people who are descended of Underground Railroad travelers, they have a very firm grasp on Harriet Tubman and what she meant to their folks, what she means to this country, and what she actually means to this country, as opposed to the extent to which the country recognizes her.
And I want to tie into that with my next question, man. Like, so a lot of us know about Harriet Tubman, a lot of us here in the U.S., but like, tell us about like Black communities in Canada. Help educate us about like the Black Canadian experience, the presence of Black Canadians throughout the country and in the history. Tell us about that.
Okay, now that's a big question. And so, like, my book is not a definitive history of Black Americans in Canada. There is a book called North of the Color Line, which I recommend anyone to read, because that deals specifically with Black Americans who came to Canada after the Civil War. Because the idea of the Underground Railroad is a little bit better, is much better known. Sorry. And we have this tendency in Canada, and Black Canadians do it too, especially people who don't have roots here that come here and want to learn about what Black folks were doing before they themselves got here. It's a tendency to flatten the entire relationship between Canada and Black America into the Underground Railroad. And any group of Black people that was here, that came here from the United States, we just assume that they are Underground Railroad descendants. And they're not. So Black people have been in Canada from the beginning, but in terms of like Black American migration from the US to Canada, think about this. In the Revolutionary War, right? Started 250 years ago next month. One of the things that the British did was they would tell enslaved people, we will emancipate you. You leave the plantation, come fight in our army, and at the end of the war, we will emancipate you. And they lost the war, but they made good on that promise. And so they would take these Black people who defected, send them to Trinidad, send them to the Bahamas, and send a lot of them to Canada, to Nova Scotia, to Prince Edward Island, to New Brunswick, to Ontario. And these are, like, especially in Nova Scotia, that's the group of people that really became famous. And they went en masse. And the one thing that they did do too is, like, the Black folks that landed in Nova Scotia, they wrote all their names down in a book. So there's actually there's a novel called The Book of Negroes by Lawrence Hill. It turned into a mini series on BET, but that is named after a literal book where they wrote down the names of all the Black people coming into Canada. And so it is a long history, underappreciated, underdiscussed relationship between Canada and Black America. Now, most of the Black people you meet, like in Toronto, are not that. Like, you will meet Scotians, Nova Scotians out here. I know a handful of Black Americans up here. But most of the people you meet there, they or their families are from either the Caribbean, and increasingly in the last 20 or so years, immigrants from a lot of different spots in West Africa. I meet a lot of Gambians now, a lot more Nigerians and Ghanaians that I know now than I would have known growing up. So the Black communities here in Toronto are very multicultural, but that link to Black America, it's a long relationship, and it's deeper than a lot of people think it is.
Thank you very, very much for that lesson, man. I want to ask you a question. Give us the difference between a memoir versus a biography. I love educating the audience on this podcast.
Let's see. One of the things that helps with an autobiography is that you're famous. Because who wants to read my autobiography? Like, I'm not famous. No one is just waking up one day and saying, I want to know how Morgan Campbell went from point A to point B in his life. Y'all don't know who I am. I just have an interesting story to tell. And a biography, though, an autobiography is much more linear and play-by-play. It's chronological. Whereas memoirs explore themes and how these themes come up in someone's life. So my life as a chronological story is not that interesting. But my life in the context of these family battles and these historical forces that help make us all who we are and help form our identities is much more interesting. My life as this person, again, a minority in every way, crafting this identity, holding on to this history and this culture and expressing it. That's much more interesting, but that's not a biography. That's a memoir. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask this question. What was it like growing up in an uber talented family, man? Like you said, music and the sports and everything like that. Your family is a lot of ways talented. So, like, what was it like growing up in that family and the proximity to that? Do you feel like pressure to live up to anything growing up? Or even like currently, do you feel like certain like subconscious pressure based on your family's history?
First thing, one of the things it did for me, and I thank my grandfather, my uncle, my sister for this, is that it let me know my limitations. It's like me as a singer. Karaoke, I'm good. Any place where you don't expect people to sing well, I sound like a good singer.
Okay. Okay.
But I know my limitations. I can carry a tune. You know, see the difference? Like, because my sister is a professional singer, I know what an actual professional sounds like, and that ain't me. And so I'm not going to go out here and try to force people to listen to me sing when I heard the real deal in my house every day growing up. And it did that pressure. I felt it, on the way into high school. I played a little saxophone in junior high, and I had a chance to audition and go to the art school where my sister had just graduated. But like that pressure, like she was such a good singer. What I didn't need was 4 years of high school with people just telling me, well, you don't play saxophone as well as your sister sang. Right. So it helped me sort of chart my own path. Plus in my family, there's one musician in every generation. Every time someone decides they're going to become a musician, all the older musicians go to them and say, don't do this. You don't want this life. It's too stressful. And invariably, I watched my uncle have that speech with my sister. And I know my uncle got that same speech from his dad, but they do it anyway. It's listen, the word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, to call. It is a calling. It calls, people answer. It's hard not to answer, right? So I relieved myself of that pressure by choosing, a different craft, no less stressful, right? No less precarious, but it's just different. In terms of in my immediate family, like my wife and I, like I'm the low achiever in this family. So we are in the trophy room of my house. The home office is a trophy room, right? 88% of these trophies in here belong to my wife.
Wow.
See the person in front? You see that person in front of that race?
Yeah.
That's my wife. That's Perdita Felician. She is a.
You did describe meeting her in the book. I was laughing. Yes, I was playing the audiobook. I was laughing listening to it.
She is a literal world champion, right? But then again, that takes the pressure off of you because, like, I'm never going to be that, so I don't have to like put that pressure on myself to strive for that. But go ahead.
I asked that question because I love reading biographies and autobiographies, and for me, the first 3 or 4 chapters I love the most because you most time hear about that person's grandparents and their parents and their aunts, and it's like a click happened where it's like, oh, that's why he's MLK. That's why he's Malcolm X. That's why he's. So you hear that trajectory of the lineage, and I love studying, exceptional people, man, and what it took the ingredients to make that. But sometimes it can be this pressure where it's like, man, I'm trying to live up to. And we see that in sports a lot with guys that have, look at Steph Curry's brother, Dale Curry, in his own right, long NBA career, and shoots incredibly good. But your brother happens to be Steph Curry. I mean,
in any other family, Seth is the star, right?
Yeah. Any other, Steph would be amazing. Any other family,
like any other family, Bronny James be like, listen, I like his game. This guy is a Division I basketball player. That's a good basketball.
Come on, man.
But we compare him to somebody that's one of the 2 or 3 best ever, and we're like, oh, Bronny stinks. Bronny James does not stink. It's a very good basketball player. It's just, our reference point for him. Is it mandatory for Black Canadians to play hockey? Another one from Lad Dennison. No, hockey's expensive. It's not mandatory, but people do play it. Hockey is prohibitively expensive.
Really?
Yes. Hockey's very.
Is it like golf and things like that? Where like you got to be part of a club and all that stuff.
Yeah, your parents are going to spend a fortune on it. And there was a while, and also hockey. There was a while in the NHL where a succession of the best fighters in the league were Black people from Quebec. Why do you think that is?
No idea. You tell me.
Who is going to get more practice fighting?
Oh, wow.
Than a Black person in a hockey league where there are not a lot of other Black people.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Trial and error. You learn it.
I'm not I'm not really a hockey fan, so I don't really follow it
Yeah.
like that as far as the money side. But like, I understand baseball is a very like money making sport. Baseball,
Mm.
some of these other sports make a lot of money. Is there a lot of money in hockey? Make it attractive to black people, like basketball, football.
Well, one, it's just not the cultural force in the U.S. that it is and has traditionally been in Canada. And two, just like the first thing you have to be able to do in hockey is afford it. And then the second thing is you need parents that, even regardless of whether or not they can afford it, feel like making that expenditure. They feel like that's an investment. It's just prohibitively expensive. And so either whether it's economic or cultural, those are just two big barriers between, a lot of black Canadians in hockey. Now, people do play. There are more black Canadian players now than there ever were when I was growing up. But it is still prohibitively expensive. And that first barrier shuts out most of the population in this country, regardless of what color they are.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I tell my friends the past few years I regret growing up, like not being more involved with soccer,
Mm-hmm.
not being more involved in wrestling, and
Yep.
even volleyball. Like here, when I was growing up, I love volleyball. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
basketball guy by nature, but for a short guy, I'm 5'8", I
Yep.
could dunk real well.
Yep.
So like I was big on slamming and blocking. I love volleyball, but unfortunately, where I grew up at, not many male volleyball things in high school and going to college. It wasn't really a track for that. So
In the
I
U.S.,
wish.
it's very
Yeah,
much a women's sport. But
yeah,
you
it
look at
was. It was.
like in Cuba, their whole team is black. And you look at some of these other volleyball teams. You look at some of these other volleyball teams internationally. There will be one black guy on the team, and he will be from Cuba. He'll be some guy that has left Cuba to go play for Poland or Italy or something like that, right? But yeah, it's so many of the sports we as black people play in the U.S. are dictated by
Money,
money
access.
and market forces, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Money and market forces, because like football is the most expensive sport out there, but they never have a hard time attracting black people because for you to play football is always subsidized by somebody. Whereas baseball, they just want your parents to play, and that just prices out anyone that's working class and below. Why bother? But your high school has a football team, and even if you don't have textbooks for everybody, they got football equipment for everybody. Even if the science lab doesn't have equipment, the weight room is fully equipped because that's where the priorities are. And they make it so that no matter how poor you are, if you have talent, they'll get you on the field. They'll
They
get
come and get you.
you.
Yeah, they come and
Yes,
get you.
baseball is different.
Yeah. I'm gonna go into your grandfather, man. I love, love, love your grandfather, brother.
Really?
Always a little taste of your grandfather. Like, I'm sorry, yeah, your grandfather, right? Like, tap into some of his career, some of his childhood, even. Like, a lot of his story sounds stupid impressive. You had 20,000 songs memorized in his head. That totally blew me away. Like, some of the parts of your grandfather is just amazing, man.
Okay, so and again, I really hope a lot of you go out and read this book, buy it, borrow it, whatever, download it, listen to the audiobook, do what you got to do. But one of the central characters and one of the central characters in this book, one of the gravitational centers in my family was my mom's dad, Claude Jones. And his deal was he was a professional musician. Um, and he played piano mostly, but he could also play Hammond B3 organ. Um, and he was a jazz musician for the most part. But again, he played a lot of R&B like in sessions, but like his day to day, he played jazz. And again, like he was an extremely difficult human being to grow up with, to be around. He was hard on the people around him because his ego and his need for attention and control were so all consuming that it made things very difficult to the point where like when two other people in the family would get into a fight and be halfway towards settling it, he would jump in because he couldn't stand to have two other people have their attention on somebody other than him. He had to be the center of attention. This is my mom's dad. Yeah, but he's a tremendously talented, skilled musician. And he, you mentioned the 20,000 songs because his thing was, and he wasn't that unusual amongst his peers. Like, it's not that he didn't believe in sheet music. He just didn't see a need for it. Like, once you have mastered your instrument, like, why do I need to read notes off a page? Like, if I can't listen to a song and play the song, if we can't discuss how the song's going to sound and then go to our instruments and make the song sound that way, then what are we even doing? If I need to read it off a piece of paper every time, I'm an amateur. I'm not a professional. So, yeah, he had nothing but disdain. Like, even for classical musicians, like, why do you need this? Why do you need a sheet of paper to tell you what to play? You should just know it. Plus, because it's jazz, it's improvised, and the players, they have to listen to each other because the song's not going to sound the same every night. Because if I'm in a good mood, maybe I want 12 more bars. Maybe I want 36 more bars on this solo, right? And the players have to read each other. And so that was more where he was coming from. So yes, he had 20,000 plus songs in his heads, and he played 6 nights a week for 50 years. And he would get requests. So if somebody comes in and says, "Hey, play Satin Doll," you better know Satin Doll.
Right.
So
No, they reminded me of the book by Malcolm Gladwell. I believe it's called Outliers or something like that. But anyway, about the 10,000 hour rule, right?
sort of, which has been debunked. The 10,000 hour rule.
I mean, but to me, more important than the literal 10,000 hours, if I'm doing something more than you're doing it, I'm probably going to be better than you percentage wise. It's more important to me. So guys like him, he playing 6 nights a week. He got people coming by the house all the time. Sound like from the book.
Yes.
Continuous, like you just always with this thing, whereas you embody it. I love that.
Yeah, and you absorb the craft, and you discuss the craft with other great players. Like, he was really good friends with Oscar Peterson, really good friends with Errol Garner, and yeah, they could chop it up and make each other better as musicians. And again, this goes back to my first point about Black American culture. Like, you can play with a level of soul that, like, you're never going to learn it in school. There ain't no textbook to teach you to play like that, right? You think, I don't know how deep your audience is into like jazz. Like, you think Bobby Timmons had somebody teach him to play like that? No, he played organ in church and then transferred that sound to the piano. But again, it's repetition, and you learn by listening, and that you learn music the way you learn a language. Just like if I learn language off of Duolingo, I'm always going to sound like a robot. Like, the only way I'm going to learn is to immerse myself. And this was, his experience. Yeah, he had lessons, but like his real learning was just by doing.
I want you to also go into your father, man. Like, more importantly, your father's battle with cancer, whenever that was going on with him. But speak from your perspective. You sound like you was in high school around that time.
Yeah.
When that was happening. Talk about like just watching that process over time as it was happening, and hospital visits and doctors and everything going along. As a child, how you internalize it?
Okay. So yeah, and the other big personality in this book is my, let me back up. Because the central conflict in this book, the one that runs beneath everything, is the tension and the conflict between my mom's family and my dad's family. So my grandfather, the musician who we just talked about, he grew up on the south side of Chicago in a neighborhood called West Pullman. They were the only Black family in this neighborhood.
Is the Pullman from the Pullman Porters?
Yes. Yeah.
That's my assumption.
Yep. So there's a neighborhood called Pullman, and just west of there was West Pullman. So they lived in West Pullman. And then my grandmother, she grew up maybe about 20 blocks north of there, but that neighborhood was already all Black, even in the 1930s. And they couldn't stand each other. And so then naturally, they both wind up having kids around the same time. And then those kids grow up and get married. So now they're stuck. Claude Jones, Mary Campbell, they're stuck. And, and so the in wrestling, it would be a triple threat match. Like, the third person in this 3-way conflict is my dad, right? Or, my parents as a unit until they split up. And so, yeah, a lot of the book deals with that push and pull, and seeing people in their imperfect moments, seeing people when they're weak, when they're vulnerable, but also, yeah, the reality of being a 16-year-old kid and learning your dad has terminal cancer. Being a 17-year-old kid and literally watching him die, and watching too how fast it comes. For 11 months he's fine, and then those last 2.5 weeks, it's a steep decline. Yeah, and that is obviously, it's a turning point in my life, and it's a turning point in this book. Like the dead center of the book, that middle chapter deals with that year in my life, that year in my dad's life. And it wasn't easy, and it's part of the reason too that I didn't really have the language to talk about it until I was, 35, 40 years old. But I'll tell you, one of the things that happened, one of the things that led me to write this book was that one summer, this is probably about 12 years ago, I was just bored at work. Like, they were trying to make me quit the job at the Toronto Star. They just kept changing my job and try to get me reporting on things that they knew I didn't like, to make me bored, to make me leave the company. But I was much too stubborn to leave on their terms. I was going to leave on my terms. But I was bored, so I just started taking a creative nonfiction class. And the teacher, the instructor, she didn't tell us what to write about, but she would give us prompts. And I just found myself coming back to these stories about, like, me and my dad in the last year and a half of his life. And I was talking with the instructor afterwards, and she's like, yeah, the reason you keep coming back to those stories is because they're important to you. You don't even think about it. This is just your reflex. That tells you how much these stories mean to you. And those stories started to form the core of this book. So, like, yeah, and a big part of who I am was what I experienced, what I survived that year. And so, yeah, it changed my life in a lot of ways for the worse. But one of the things it did teach me was the fact that most times in life, stuff is not going to be perfect. You sit around and wait for stuff to be perfect, you will wait forever, because you want to sit and feel sorry for yourself for a year, 2 years, 3 years. There might always be somebody that's going to give you, like, sympathy, but sympathy is a drug and you get hooked on it. But the world just, it moves on. It ain't got time for that. This doesn't mean don't mourn, doesn't mean don't grieve, but just understand, if you wait until you feel perfect, you will never feel. I don't feel perfect now. But if I waited until I felt perfect to start making something of my life, then I would be 50. I'm going to be 50 in the fall. I'll be 50 years old and still waiting to feel perfect. You can't wait for perfect. You just make it happen.
Man, that's real. That's the realest right there, man. So I want to ask you this question. You came from a strong background in journalism. You're a trained journalist.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, did that background make researching for this book an easier process, and the writing process? Like, did any of that give you any advantage in this, or was it a totally different monster writing this?
Both. So the advantage you have as a journalist is that, especially as a newspaper journalist, is that you don't really deal with writer's block. Writer's block is not a thing, because I'm just so used to having to write something, conceive of it, write it quickly on deadline pressure. Like, writer's block is a luxury. I can't afford writer's block. If you got writer's block, hey, I'm happy for you, because it means you have time. I'm not used to having time. I'm used to figuring it out and writing it. And so that part of it was not a challenge. Yeah, and going out and learning stuff was not a challenge. The challenge is, as a journalist, you just get used to writing about other people all the time. You don't write a whole lot about yourself. And you can write really detailed, detailed, moving stories about other people, where you got to get them in the interview process to be vulnerable, to open up to you, to talk about times, like, especially in sports, because you write about people when they lose, when they win, but you write about people when they lose. And I got to go sit down with somebody and get them to tell me about the time they tore their Achilles tendon or whatever. That's a traumatic period in their life, but this is what you do. But now, to be able to do that for myself is a different challenge. And one of the differences too between writing like a column and writing a memoir is that, like, as a columnist, you have the answers. You are confident, bordering on arrogant, but that's what makes great columns work. You're very self-assured. But writing a memoir, it's not about having the answers, it's about searching for the answers. And again, like, you have to be vulnerable. I'm not writing about the time someone else fell on their face. I'm writing about the time I fell on my face. And I got to be honest about it, because if I'm not honest about it, it doesn't work. You know, because that's the problem too with a lot of like celebrity memoirs and celebrity biographies. And this famous person just wants to tell you how awesome they are. And this memoir is just victory after victory after victory. I'm like, hey, that's great. But I actually saw that victory on TV. Like, tell me something I don't know. Right. But they don't want to tell you about the time, because their brand, their ego is not built on vulnerability. It's built on success. And so, but that was the biggest challenge for me, much more than the actual writing, is getting my head into a space where I could be vulnerable on the page. That was a challenge.
I have 3 more questions, if that's fine with you. 3 more questions.
As many as you want. 3, 4, 5.
Okay, well, let's do
like
it.
That.
If you can say it like that, let's do it.
I'm like that LeBron James meme with the cigarette in the do-rag.
Yeah.
3 questions, 4 questions, 5 does not matter. Cavs in 6. Let's go.
Okay. I try to. I want to respect time. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I have time because I told my wife I was starting at 8.
Oh, okay.
There's only 7 where I am, so we got time.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed about the book is how deeply sports, and particularly the Bears, are interwoven in your family dynamic. That environment, but did that environment help plant seeds in your own connection to sports and the work you're doing covering sports today? Did those early seeds help connect those dots? Your love of sports right now.
2 things. One, you mentioned the Chicago Bears. Yes, my parents are from Chicago. And there's a chapter in the book about our experience as this Chicago family of Chicagoans abroad, watching the 1985 Bears march toward this championship. And they're winning this championship the same year my parents' marriage is falling apart. So yeah, I remember that season in vivid detail for a lot of different reasons. So that's one thing. But again, it's the fact that, like, my parents, they are Chicagoans. They love football. There it goes. They are very much of the Midwest, right? They're not, in that sense, you mentioned outliers. They're not outliers. They're very much the Midwest. They love them some football. My mom, every Saturday night she calls me, she want to talk about college football. And she'll call me again on Sunday. She want to talk about the NFL. My mom loves football. But yeah, so sports. Another brilliant thing my parents did was, when I was 9, turning 10, they wanted to encourage a reading habit. So they just got me the subscription to Sports Illustrated. Like, I wasn't super into sports, but I like sports. But that was the way they could get me to read. And so Sports Illustrated came in the house and I started reading. And that was what started me. Now, the path from being a 9-year-old kid reading Sports Illustrated, becoming a professional writer, yeah, it's not a straight path. It's not a short path, but that was where I got into the habit of reading. And then the habit of reading, it reoccurred later in high school. And that's what got me into the habit of writing and really got me thinking about, a way to do this for a living. Go ahead.
I want to speak on this because, as a fellow Black man that was a lifelong athlete, and I was a reluctant reader, right?
Yeah.
But years ago, doing this podcast, somebody educated me on the air, because I would always say I was a late bloomer when it comes to reading.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't counting all the magazines I was reading as reading. It wasn't books.
Yep.
But I was reading Slam magazine.
Yep.
Sports Illustrated.
Yep.
Double XL. The Source.
Yep.
All those public. I was reading those things all the time. So
Yep.
my homeboy was like, "Son, you was always reading. It just wasn't books. You were still always reading journalism You're
Yep,
reading big words. You're reading complete
exactly.
paragraphs, thoughts.
Yeah, and there's look, especially the era of Sports Illustrated I grew up reading. They still had heavyweights writing for them, like Ralph Wiley in the '80s, uh, Gary Smith, like Rick Riley sort of became a parody of himself. But like you read mid-career Rick Riley at Sports Illustrated, he was a genius, right? And these are the people I grew up reading, and that's exactly it. Like sometimes you need a bridge. You can't go from zero to big books. And again, what it also
Yeah.
taught me is that sports, above and beyond just being a set of games and contests and all this, is just a language that people speak. And you can use sports to tell really interesting stories that are about things that have nothing to do with sports.
Yes.
But sports is
Yes.
just that language. And so a lot of
Yeah.
stories so like, if my parents, when I was 11 years old, said, "Hey, we want you to read a story about brain damage," I'd have been like, "No, why?" But they said, "Here's Sports Illustrated, and here's a story in the back of the book where Ralph Wiley talks about Sugar Ray Robinson getting old, going senile, watching Sugar Ray Leonard sort of usurp the Sugar Ray nickname. I'll read that story." Right? And so
Yeah.
the story was about the effects, the physical
Yeah.
effects of a lifetime in the ring and the brain damage that goes with it. But the
Yeah.
language they used to tell it was sports. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Um, as a writer and public speaker, I make sport analogies a lot.
yeah.
And people sometimes even ask me, like, Sean, do you think you're boxing yourself in because using these sport references? And people might not watch sports. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
man, the average person, even if it's a lady, you probably watch sport with your dad or with your grandfather or with the guy you with. You probably at some point, you've at least seen it.
Mm-hmm.
To get the point I'm trying to make, it's the easiest through line to make a major point. It's through sport.
Yeah, and there's people that speak it and people that don't, and that's fine. And I speak to people that speak my language, and that's that. Uh, Sometimes I have to code switch, but I don't always code switch. And sometimes it's up to you to keep up with what I'm saying. And sometimes if I don't code switch and you can't keep up with what I'm saying, I don't have a problem with that. That's your problem, not mine. Right?
Let he who have ears to hear, let them hear. Right.
Yeah. And the thing is, like in my book, I also make a couple of very deliberate, intentional detours into sort of the architecture of African American vernacular English, and I did that for the benefit of the Canadians that would read it. Because when you read it, like you don't need me to tell you how AAVE works. You hear it all day, every day, right? But I know there are going to be a lot of Canadians reading and be like, "Oh, why does Morgan's dad use double negatives and triple negatives, whatever it is?" Right? It's I explain it to them, but again, as with a lot of the sports references, I referenced well, the sports references are like the slow jam references in the sense that when I sit down to write something like this, the reader I imagine is not like a white person from Saskatchewan that needs every single cultural quirk explained to them. The reader I imagine is somebody like me or like my friends from Northwestern. And I can just tell them the story. I don't got to explain everything because they'll get it.
And it's almost like a good comedian. If I explain the joke, it's
Yes.
not a good joke. Not
Yes.
even a joke. If I got to explain the joke. Or in
And
hip
so
hop, if I got to
also,
break down the metaphor.
yeah. So just like when y'all get to the 90-minute slow jam chapter, I'm just talking about a bunch of slow jams because that's really all I want to do is like, man, because this is the book is about me. I want people at the end to feel like they know me, and people that know me in real life know that I like slow jams. And one of the things I'll talk about slow jams all day, right? And as I write the chapter, like people that know me and people that are really into that vintage of Black music, every song I mention, they're going to hear it in their head. And that's that. Now, for the white people, they had to read that chapter with Spotify open.
Yes.
Every time a song came up, they had to search it in Spotify.
Let me tell you something, my brother. Let me say, well, you and the audience, right? Because my audience is kind of a separate audience.
Yeah.
So I do poetry, I do spoken word, things like that, right? So I have a whole piece I wrote, and the whole thing is about slow jams.
Yeah.
And all these metaphors. But again, like you said, if a person don't know those songs, those 1990 songs, they're probably gonna need Spotify to look those songs up.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is now,
and hear what I'm doing with it.
The lucky thing is now there are tools for you to go. So like in to bring it back to sports metaphors, like I make a lot of boxing references in the book, and I mention this really famous picture of Rocky Marciano punching Jersey Joe Walcott. So all the boxing fans now, that picture comes up in their head immediately. They don't have to Google it. But other people, you got to go Google it. So 25, 30 years ago, you couldn't even Google it. 25 years ago, maybe, but 30 years ago, you couldn't Google it. Now you can Google it. So I'm now that much less pressed about like trying to explain every little thing. I can just speak in my first language to people who understand my first language.
Yes. I want to ask you about today's media, right? Today's media versus traditional journalism as you are, right?
Yes.
So today's media feel like as things are evolving, people that can't afford a camera and a ring light and a microphone, they just jump into journalism. And now they're having some opportunities they wouldn't have had before. Put it like that. They're not going on the beat. They're not doing all the stuff in the back room like you had to do. So what do you feel about today's journalism versus like traditional classical journalism?
In some ways, the medium doesn't matter. Like if you are going out and learning stuff that you didn't know before and showing people stuff that they didn't know before that they either wanted to know or didn't know they wanted to know, but wind up realizing that this is very important to them, then that is journalism. So that takes the form of writing, it takes the form of podcasting, broadcasting, short form videos, whatever. There are a lot of ways to get it done. And so in that sense, I don't judge people for the medium they choose. And the reality is, even we as writers, like I work in a bunch of different media, right? Sometimes I'm on TV, whatever. But the business is really struggling, and the difference is that it's a lot harder for traditional journalism just to compete for people's attention because there are so many influencers out there, so many people producing stuff that looks like journalism, looks like documentary, but is in fact an infomercial. A lot of people spreading mis and disinformation, and like we are always competing with that. And the internet gives anyone, any crackpot, the opportunity to present themselves as credible. And this is one of the things the media struggle with. But two, traditional media are not built to operate in an environment where so many people just lie and so many people deal with them in bad faith. Like this is one of the problems with political coverage in the United States. Like I have, I subscribe to the New York Times. I got to turn off my New York Times phone alerts because every time Trump says something, that becomes a news story. Now, journalists think I'm nuts, but I say this because I am a journalist. And they can tell me I'm wrong, but I know I'm not wrong. But just because somebody says something does not make it news. And it does not matter if it is the president. Like the argument they will make to me is that the president said it, so it's news. But if the president said it and it is not true, you have to ask yourself as a journalist, is my job to tell true stories, or is my job just to hand a megaphone to somebody just because? Right? And so if Trump says this, how many times has Trump said he's ending the war in Iran? It doesn't matter if he says it because he ain't doing it. You got to write about what he does. If you are writing about what he says, you cannot present it as fact. And especially if you know he is lying, you have to present it as a claim. The only thing that makes that untruth newsworthy is the fact that the president is saying something that is not true, and you have to present it as an untruth. And if it hasn't been proven untrue yet, you still cannot just take him at his word for everything. Just because he says it's happening, don't make it true.
Yeah.
And yet we get caught in this cycle, and every single news outlet just becomes a megaphone for this person who understands that he's not telling the truth, and he knows he's not telling the truth, but he just wants to see how far he can push you to promote his untruths. And this is a fundamental breakdown in the system. And what happens too is, we in the media wind up sanitizing his messages and lending him a coherence that he himself does not have. So like the big example was when he was running for president last time, and a reporter asked him a question about healthcare, and he answered with an answer about tariffs. And so the headlines off of that and the story that came from that exchange was that Trump was proposing tariffs to pay for healthcare, which he never did. He just didn't feel like talking about healthcare, so he started talking about tariffs. Now, if Trump said, I'm going to impose a tariff, another word for tariff is tax, to pay for healthcare for all Americans, shit, I might vote for Trump. That is the most socialist thing anyone's ever done. I live in a country where this is what you do. You pay more taxes, healthcare is free. You're speaking my language for once, Trump, but that's not what he was doing. But we in the media massage his messages to make him seem a lot more coherent and a lot smarter than he actually is, a lot more with it than he actually is. And we do our readers a disservice, and we do him a big favor in terms of making his incoherent messaging sound more intelligent and well thought out and palatable than it actually is to a wide swath of the audience, when really we just need to present him as he is. And if he's not dealing with us in good faith, we don't have to bridge that gap. He got to bridge that gap. But it's a reflexive action.
Tell us about the importance of independent journalism, because over the years, I follow a lot of independent journalism. Of course, I still got the New York Times and Washington Post and all that, but we know these billionaires have bought up all these media outlets to where they're going to slant it to a certain way because they have to, because they own it. So I like the independent people that's on the ground in different parts of the world showing you what's really going on. Give us the importance of that. And of course, they get shadow banned. They get all this stuff happens to them. And
and
they're not well funded.
This is another of the binds we're in, right? Is that, it's vitally important to patronize independent media outlets that are not beholden to these big business interests. We don't have an advertising relationship with this corporation or that corporation. We can just write about all of them honestly. And we don't need a ton of access to the president, so we don't have to kiss his behind to get him to be nice to us to sit down for an interview, because that's not what we're doing. But the problem is, because we're in a digital age, you want to host it on a website someplace, you got to deal with one of these tech giants. And if you are the independent media outlet that holds the tech giants to account, then you are still also dependent on these tech giants. And this is another of the sort of hamster wheels we're on. And I personally don't know how to get off that hamster wheel so that we can run and move forward, but that's where we are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My last two, right? My bottom two.
Let's go.
I've had a few of my guests on the show. They have been TEDx speakers. Now, as a public speaker, as a large notch on the belt, I would love to be a TEDx speaker myself one day. Give us an idea of what it was like having that TEDx experience. What did you learn from that experience?
So, a friend of mine who worked at this local campus of the University of Toronto, I think she had suggested my name to the students who were running the TEDx on their campus. And they called me one day and they asked me if I could make a speech about something. And I think the theme that year was ellipsis. So they asked me, what does an ellipsis mean to me? Like the ... I said, often an ellipsis is where something is missing from the story. what is unsaid in that ellipsis? Like I know as a journalist, sometimes you will quote somebody, and if they have a really long sentence, and the beginning is interesting and the end is interesting, you'll put the ellipsis in there, and that's where all the boring stuff is. Take it out, and you keep going. But that's also one of these, like, if I end a story with an ellipsis, that means something more happened, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Think of a song where I know. There's a song by Raphael Sadiq called "I'm in Like."
Okay.
And as at the end of the song, last couple bars, this bass drum starts kicking. So the song is like about to get new life, but then the song fades out. But in your mind, you know, like there was.
Hey, you a Chicago guy, Chicago roots. I think about Common, the light at the end of the song, the light.
Yeah.
He said, "Da da 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 da." I say you the rest when I see
you. Yeah. ... Yes. Okay. So what I did with that theme was, you know, I related it to the work that I do in the sense that I'm a sports writer, and you know, the people we write about are a multicultural group of people, but the people doing a lot of the reporting is not a multicultural group of people. So what gets lost, what gets unsaid, how many ellipses are there in the coverage? Like when you read something and you would have appreciated knowing something more about the person, but they just sort of leave you hanging because the reporter isn't equipped, you know, to report across cultural lines, or the reporter is just beholden to all these stereotypes, and these stereotypes are the lens through which they view athletes who are not like them. And so my TEDx speech was about race in sports and telling true stories in different ways that we as writers, and then also as audience, that we as writers can tell smarter stories, more accurate stories by leaving stereotypes to the side and just really getting to the heart of the issue. And then how we as readers can start to identify these stereotypes, these tropes that are really holding back the storytelling. And also identify storytellers that don't use them, so that we know who we can trust, you know, to tell a true story, especially as it relates to racial issues. And so it was fun. It was a thrill. You know, we don't have a script, right? You just have a bunch of images, and each image sort of keeps you on track with what you're talking about. But the same thing, yeah, I don't read when I give a speech. I don't read off a teleprompter.
Wow. So like your grandfather, you got these speeches just in your head, just memorized.
Well, yeah, not even memorize it. It's just, again, it's just like my grandpa playing a song. Like, he knows the chords, he knows how the song goes. You play it. If you got to read every note every night, then you ain't been doing your job the whole time.
There's a lot of freedom in that, because even doing this show, of course, I have notes, obviously, right? But like, I don't want to be handcuffed to the paper. Like I try to almost put it away from me to where, yes, I've read the book more than once. I did my homework, but let me just talk to you.
Yeah, and also as an interviewer, you have to read what the person's telling you. So you might have this list of questions. So if I'm interviewing, say I managed to score one-on-one with LeBron James, and I got this list of questions, and then I asked him a question at some point. He's like, yeah. And then that was when I blew out my ACL, and I actually went and had surgery in the off season, and nobody knew about it, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, from then it doesn't matter what's on my list of questions. I gotta ask you more about
you got it. Yeah, you gotta go there. You gotta go there.
And so
you can't be like, oh, well, okay, LeBron, well, how about the cookies and ice cream?
Yes. So the TEDx speech, I knew the notes I had to hit, but I'm also in the room. I'm responding to the room, right? And the thing is, if you just have a script, and you say something and people laugh, it's going to throw off your script. But if you just have, you have the outline, you know the notes you got to hit, then it makes it a lot easier when something happens, when people laugh at something you know is a laugh line, but when they laugh at something unexpected, you're still ready, to pause, pick it back up. Or like, if you know people in the audience, you can play off of them.
Yeah.
And so, I had a great time. It took that was maybe February of 2017, and then it went up on YouTube that June. think
I
it's
watched
still
it last night. I watched it.
okay. It's still
For the
pins.
audience, go look it up. Go look it up.
Yeah,
Type his name in, easy to find. Go check him out.
yeah. Morgan Campbell TEDx.
Go check him
And
out.
it's yeah,
So
yeah. Go ahead.
you also had a Netflix experience. We all
Oh.
love Netflix. You had some voice work with Netflix. So what was that like?
Sort of.
These
No.
big moments, man.
So what happens is, like in other places you guys can find me is doing boxing commentary, and so and this is how small the world is, right? So I'm sure a lot of your audience knows Bomani Jones, right?
Yes,
So
I love him. I love Bomani.
so Bo, he one of the times he got fired from ESPN, he wound up doing a show like a satellite radio show, but the station was based here in Toronto. So every now and then he would come to Toronto, but he mostly did the show from his house in North Carolina. But his producer is Corey Erdman, very good friend of mine. And Corey back then was mostly a producer, but Corey has always been a big boxing guy. So like on the side, he would do like the lowest wattage boxing shows you could think of. He would be on the commentary. And then they all left that station. Sorry, that station got torpedoed. So they all scattered. And then Corey wound up working at a network called the Fight Network. Where that's all they did was boxing and MMA. Point is, like, Corey right now is the busiest boxing commentator in the sport. And then, but Corey had this relationship with these promoters in Montreal. And so when they really started ramping up their shows and really started getting more aggressive about courting an English-speaking audience, because in Montreal, French is the first language. So they were really aggressive about their French broadcasts, and the English broadcasts were an afterthought. But when they really got aggressive about English broadcasts, they're like, Corey, you're up. Can you think of someone that can work with you? He's like, get me Morgan. So Corey called me. He's like, listen, man, we're going to do these shows in Montreal every month. So we're going literally next week. That's where we're going to be. You can catch us on DAZN, DAZN.com. But point is, those shows in Montreal, they had this big heavyweight from Russia named Arslanbek Makhmudov. Okay. And he, on his way up the rankings, still is. He's a fearsome puncher. And he looks the part. 6'5", beard, no mustache, big, scary looking guy. And so I've called a bunch of his fights. And so Arslanbek Makhmudov got the call a couple months ago to fight Tyson Fury. And that show was on Netflix. And so in the pre-fight sizzle reel, they have this highlight montage of Arslanbek Makhmudov knocking people through the ropes, all this stuff. And I heard this voice saying, that's pure power. I was like, I recognize that voice. Yeah, it was my voice. So they cut up a bunch of my audio from one of the fights he had, one of his fights that I had called. And so I wound up, my voice is on Netflix for about,
man, that's amazing.
7 or 8 seconds total.
That's amazing. Let me piggyback off of that real fast, man. So I enjoyed the audio book, right? Yep. I had the PDF, electronic, but I love the audio book. I'm an audio fanatic.
Good.
Give us what it was like recording the audio book of your own book. And of course, you have professional background. So, like, again, did that give you an advantage going into the booth to record, or was it totally different doing a full-length audio book?
A few things about the audiobook experience. One, if you are an author, like any of the authors listening, like the veteran authors know the deal, but like first-time authors, if you're good at reading, because everyone isn't good at presenting and performing their work. Some people are really boring. But if you have a personality, record your audiobook, because they got to pay you extra to record the audiobook. And it also just streamlines the process, because there's only one schedule you got to work with instead of going to find an actor. Now, for me, we've mentioned a few times in this podcast, like, how defensive I am about Black American culture, right? And when Black Americans do this, people think we are weird. They think you're being a xenophobe, blah, 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 because people are just used to being able to treat our culture like an all-you-can-eat buffet, appropriate our culture, do it, and then sell it back to us, do whatever, right? But the point I'm making is, my book, you've read it, you've heard it, it's very heavy on dialogue, right? And so one thing I was not going to allow to happen, this is the other thing about Black American accents. One is that people who are not Black in America, they don't recognize that the accents are also regional. So I listen to you talk. I know you're from Louisiana. Just listen to you talk. You know what I'm saying? You could be Sean Polidor, Sean Jackson. It don't matter. Your accent. You are from you from Southern Louisiana.
Yes, sir. The Southwest. Swag.
I can hear it, and you're right, and you don't sound like my parents who are from Chicago. You're broadly, yes, but these accents are regional. The point I'm making is what I did not want and what I was not going to accept was some actor reading the audiobook, doing the dialogue that can't do the accents or thinks they sound authentic doing the accents and sounds like a hillbilly, sounds like, bad slave accent, sounds like bad rapper accent, because there's how a lot of non-Black Americans, when they try to affect that accent, that's how they sound. That's why Kendrick told Drake that there's no accent you can sell me. And Drake's dad is from, where's he from? Texas. He got no business sounding the way he just does.
Right.
But if they were going to come to me and say, we want an actor to do your audiobook, I was going to tell them there are only 2 actors I will allow to read this audiobook. One is named John Chase. He's a good friend of my uncle's from Windsor, across the river from Detroit. And the other is Clark Johnson, who, if you remember Homicide: Life on the Street, he was on that. He was also in season 5 of The Wire. He was, I think his character's name was Gus. He was the assignment editor.
Okay, yeah, The Wire, man. Come on now.
But he's from Toronto. His sister used to play in a band with my uncle. Like, my family and his family go way back. And so those are the only 2 actors I was going to accept reading that audiobook. But it turned out that they're like, or you can read the audiobook, as let's do it this way. It's easier to schedule. And I'm getting that money. So we'll do it. It was a lot of fun. And one of the things to it does improve the final product, because you read the audiobook off of a proof. It's not the final copy of the book. But what winds up happening is, as you read it back to yourself for the trillionth time, you wind up finding some things that you want to change. So you change them, and then you send all those changes back over, and then they update the manuscript before they print it. And then they bring you back to the studio and they call it pickups, where you just you read one line at a time.
You punching in, kind of punching in.
Yeah. And so for all of those reasons, if you're a first-time author, by all means, make sure you are the person that reads your audiobook.
Yes.
Because it makes it enhances the audiobook, and it makes the final product of the book better, because you catch your last few little mistakes.
Yeah. Because I tell all of my writing friends, I did my own audiobooks during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But ever since then, even if I'm not in the booth recording, as I'm writing the chapter, I try to do a voice note and I'm reading it aloud, because as I'm reading it, I can tell where I have too many words here, or to add a word here, or by my breath, I can tell, kind of like self-editing as I'm doing that reading aloud process.
Well, you listen, it's right in your Instagram handle, like a griot, right, is an oral storyteller. So we are writers, but all of these traditions started orally, and there's still always room for that element of storytelling. And again, taking the time to read it out loud enhances what winds up on the page. So yeah, don't deprive yourself of an opportunity to do that. Plus, for your audience, if you get the audiobook, you get to hear me sing. The 90-minute slow jam chapter, you hear me do a little Glenn Jones, right? You do a little mid condition in that chapter.
Do you think audiobooks could help us improve the literacy gap going on in the nation right now? We're seeing these crazy stats about literacy being at this crazy low. Children, adults, we see all these videos, people that can't read simple paragraphs. As a writer, how do you feel about that, first of all? Like, both of us are writers, and like when I see these videos, I'm like, man, like,
I had some friends sending me those videos today. Yeah, and it is it's depressing. Audiobooks can help, because like so many of us are just so used to having some type of audio with us all the time, whether it's a podcast. So if it can be a podcast, why can't it be an audiobook? Now, I personally am not into audiobooks. I like to I don't even like ebooks. I like to hold it in my hand. I like to be able to fold pages, make notes, whatever. I'm very tactile that way. But if that's not how you're oriented, yeah, by all means. Like, and some people, I got friends that got dyslexia. It just takes them too long to read. So they just want to get through the book and still understand everything, but just get through it on time. Audiobook is the way to do it. And, as now, when I look at, we'll see what happens with the paperback, because if the paperback does better in stores and word starts spreading, then audio sales pick up too. But I look at the sales I've had so far. 81% of them are print. The rest are ebook and audiobook. So audiobooks are probably 8% of my sales, but I don't know if everyone's sales are like that, or if that's just the people that have been attracted to this book so far. And again, as it finds a wider audience, those proportions might change a little bit.
Yes, sir, man. That's it, man. That's a wrap, brother. I appreciate your time. Thanks for your effort. Definitely appreciate you coming on here, man, and on live right now. So whenever we conclude, you can take it, make reels, TikToks, do your
Perfect.
TikTok thing with it, man. And I appreciate you on the show, brother.
Yeah, I got to get better at with the AI programs that clip the things for you. But man, listen, I appreciate you making the time. And again, like, I was actually the one that I felt honored when you answered my DM, right? Because listen, the people that have been on this show are people that they're in my library.
That's crazy,
right? Jeff Pearlman, Amani Perry, Kiese Lehman. These are people that I didn't necessarily grow up reading them because I'm old, but these are people that I really admire. And so just to like have shared the same podcast space with them, I feel like a grown-up writer now. It's like another rite of passage.
Back to independent journalism.
Yep.
So you inboxing me blessed me because I've been 8-9 years doing this. Most times I'm trying to cold call a person. I'm a nobody. If you
Yep.
Like, who are you coming inbox me about this show? And I'm begging them, could you please come on my podcast? So I'm getting to a point lately where people are coming to me like, hey, I got a book. I'm like, yes.
Listen,
I get everybody out chasing people.
it's like anything else. Once you land that big interview, it sends that message to everyone like that this is a place worth being, a place that is worthy of you and your platform, right? Like once you have an Amani Perry and a Jeff Pearlman on here, people know this is a place for like serious writers. It's not just some guy running his mouth.
And if you have any other writing friends, man, please send them my way. I would love to have them on the show, man.
Have you had Craig Shreve on yet?
Yes. I had him a few months ago. African Samurai, man. Yes.
So he's another one. His family, because you know how it is, like you can see somebody's last name and start to figure out where they're from. So Craig, I saw the last name Shreve. I'm like, I know exactly where that guy's from. And I met him and he was like, yeah, I'm from North Buxton, Ontario. I was like, of course you are, because your last name is Shreve. And that is one of these Underground Railroad descendant names. So
now, see, that's crazy. I was going to rap at this point, but you just made me go into something real fast. So both of you have a current fitness regimen, and he goes hard body on Spartan racing and rock climbing and whatever he's doing. Yeah. My question is, give us, how does that physicality help you in the writing?
One, it's they are similar in the sense that the thing that is most important, more important than inspiration, more important than motivation, more important than being perfect at stuff, is just being consistent, getting out there and doing it over and over and over, and making small improvements over time is much more important than like just feeling motivated one day and I work out 6 hours in one day because I felt motivated that day, and then I don't feel motivated again for 3 more weeks. It's just better to do an hour a day, 5 days a week. And writing the book is the same thing. It's like, I think a lot of people that don't write have really romantic notions of how writing happens. You think you wake up and you feel inspired and you do this, you do that because you caught a vibe and blah, blah, blah. And if that happens for you, that's great. But for most of us, what wins is consistency. So it's the same as being fit. So it's same as getting fit, same as staying fit, same as getting back into shape after you've had an injury or whatever. And so that was, the way I looked at writing the book was the same way I looked at training for a half marathon or whatever. I'm just going to carve out a routine, stick to that routine, and watch the gains accrue over time instead of just hoping I get it all done in one magical session, because that, for the most part, doesn't happen. Or if you have that one magical session where you write 10,000 words at once, it's because you've been writing the 1,000 words a day, month after month after month, and sort of built that capacity, and probably have just worked through a bunch of ideas in the back of your head as you're doing this other thing, right? In the same way that I can run 3 miles a day, 4 times a week for 6 months, and then the next day I can go run 10. I've never tried it before, but you know what? It's all that work I did before gave me the capacity to do that. So in that way, they are very similar, but I don't run anywhere near as like Craig. He's an ultra runner. He'll run 40, 50 miles at a time. I don't do that.
He's crazy. He's crazy.
I do low speed sprints up and down the track around the corner from my house.
And even for myself, for my audience sake, man, like my own writing journey and my journalism journey, like I think the same athlete mindset I had growing up, it's like I'm writing all day, every day. Yep. The same way I will be in the gym shooting shots all day, every day. I do the podcast.
That's another thing I think people don't realize. It is the way a lot of people that don't do writing think of writing the same way people that don't do sports think of sports, in the sense that they think it is all talent. And talent is part of it. Now, if you have a lot of talent, but also are consistent, then you're going to do special things. But the most important part is to do the thing consistently. And that's the only way to develop your talent, to express your talent.
Yes.
And so,
like
LeBron James, as much as he does, he's as big as he is, as fast as he is, as durable as he is. But his success comes from the fact that, yes, he put in the time to master the craft. And now all his physical skills also,
That's why it's almost like, it's a compliment whenever somebody said, man, you look so comfortable on the camera, you look so comfortable on the TV and the radio.
That's practice too.
I have put so much time into being like this.
That is practice too.
It's discrediting how much time I put into it to say, oh, you're a natural on camera, you're a natural on the radio. Like, I'm not a natural.
Yeah. You can be a natural because, if you have a personality, but even with a personality, it still takes practice. Like, people used to tell me I was a natural on camera, and because I did do well on camera without a lot of training or a lot of practice. But I'm a lot better now than I was 5 years ago because I have had more practice. And I know now what to look for and what to practice, what to improve. So all of these things are the same. None of them are different. Like, learning an instrument is not different from getting in shape, is not different from learning to write, is not different from presenting well on camera. Like, they all depend on some measure of talent, but a large measure of consistency.
Work. Yeah. I think the advantage of being the physical background person is me sitting there writing a lot. It's way easier than doing suicides and wind sprints and running bleachers and stadiums. Our stuff in the 80s and the 90s.
Yes.
It's probably illegal now.
Well, what
I did in junior high is illegal now.
A lot of things that we call mental toughness are task specific. So some people, they can really focus on like a basketball practice despite like how winded you are. You tell that same person to like focus on reading 30 pages tonight, they can't do it. It's task specific. But yeah, bigger point is, when you played a lot of sports like at a high level, you also just get used to being uncomfortable. So just the idea of being uncomfortable doesn't bother you. You just do it. It's not, it's not the end of the world.
As Floyd says, just work. Yep. All work is easy work. Huh?
Exactly.
All work is easy work, man. Hey, man, I appreciate you, man. I really, really enjoyed it. In the future, you got something else, man, come back to the show. Any other topics or whatever, we can just run it, man. I enjoy it.
Anytime you want me, call me. I'm there.
Okay. You got it, man. I'll take you up on that. Have a good day. Be blessed, my brother.
All right, man. Stay safe.